is the founder and facilitator of the popular Zen of Good Writing course. She is the former editor of Life Positive and Society magazines. She is the author of Traveling Light and Traveling Lighter. Her third book, 55 Lessons, published by Hay House, is holding fire on account of COVID. She is passionate about creating awareness of a holistic way of life and to prepare the world for a happier and more harmonious life. Thank you very much, and over to both of you, Anu and Suma.
So thank you very much, Suma. Over to you. And Suma, everybody is going to be talking to us today, and I'm very, very honored to have her here. So before she starts, I want to say this. I always wanted to write. But to write is one of the most difficult things for me because I make spelling mistakes. My grammar is all over the place. But this lady, Suma Varughese, lovingly said one line to me, and she said, you know what, you got ideas? Go. Don't get worried. And there are enough people who will edit it for you, but don't ever get scared. And she's the one who made me write lovingly, and she made me understand vulnerability is not something that you should shy away from. Vulnerability is something that has to be cherished. It's the most precious gift that anybody can have. I am deeply deep gratitude today that I have my teacher, my mentor in writing. I have a lot to learn from her. And I keep jumping in and jumping out because I'm constantly trying to do so many things. Thank you, Suma, for accepting my invite. And thank you for being here, because you being here feels like a dream come true. Thank you so much.
Wow, Anu, you honor me too much. Thank you so much for inviting me and asking me to be part of this session. And thank you so much, Anya, as well, for inviting me. Really, very, very happy to be here. And what Anu wants me to do is to speak to all of you for 10 minutes about the therapeutic power of writing. So is writing therapeutic? As someone who's written for virtually all her life, my unqualified answer would be yes. And the reason for this is very simple. It's because writing has the capacity to bring whatever you write out into the conscious mind. It's no longer lurking in the unconscious mind, it's actually up there in your conscious mind. And the beauty of the whole thing is that when something is in your conscious mind, then it doesn't affect you so much. The power of whatever you was lurking inside, that power goes. So it's it's almost a stupendous gift. It means that if you, if you're angry with someone, you're really, really furious with someone, and you write about that incident and, express all your feelings about it, over time, what will happen is that you start feeling much easier about it. It's no longer such a huge thing. And in fact, after a while, you'll even start thinking, oh, could it be that I'm overreacting? And some fresh thoughts may come to your mind, like maybe I'm also wrong in this matter. It's amazing. Simple act of writing. All you're doing is getting it out of here and maybe putting it on a paper or something. And that simple act releases you to rethink the whole thing. It frees you of whatever emotion has gripped you at the moment. So that is writing's superpower. It makes things conscious. Now you can use the same trick in various different ways. You can even use it for a simple mundane thing like writing your to-do list. Just the very act of writing it instead of having it rattling in your head will ensure that you've got all your, all your duties down, and you will or even remember it better. In fact, psychotherapists are so convinced of the therapeutic power of writing that they routinely tell all their clients, all my psychotherapy friends routinely tell their clients to start writing a journal, or when they're really upset, to vent whatever they want to say out so that it's no longer troubling them. And there's much more to writing than just that. It has so many other advantages. It also enables you, because writing gives clarity. The minute you're writing, things just fall into place. Because of that, you'll actually find that you can organize your thoughts a whole lot better. You work on your emotions through writing, but you can also use writing to help you organize your thoughts. So no matter how well you're prepared for something, you will find that the minute you actually start writing it, you will find that fresh thoughts keep coming. More connections happen, more insights surface, memory, new ideas come in. It's just amazing. Writing creates more writing, and that's an incredibly powerful tool. Is it possible for me to see others, because I like to speak to people? No, this is all, is it? Okay. I get a lot of energy when I'm speaking to people. Yeah. But there is a much more powerful part of writing, and it is this, that writing actually enables us to supports us in our journey of self-transformation. How does that happen? Because no matter what path you're on, self-transformation actually consists of only two processes. One is awareness, and the other is acceptance of whatever you're aware of. So awareness, ongoing awareness of our thoughts and our feelings and our physical sensations, and acceptance of this is really all you need to change and transform yourself. But both these things are very, very difficult. Awareness is very difficult, and acceptance is even more difficult. But the beauty of writing is as we already understood, it brings things to the conscious mind. So you become aware. And then the other thing is, because the emotional charge reduces when you write, it also nudges you towards self-acceptance. So it's a wonderful ancillary tool that all seekers can use to move towards whatever we are all heading for, enlightenment or self-transformation or whatever it is. So that's the reason why writing is no small this thing. It's a very powerful skill. And what else can it do? Writing can also excavate the hidden and suppressed memories within us and heal us of it. Try a small exercise. In fact, I would suggest you do this exercise every day. So try this exercise when you're in your own space. Just write in random, just write for 10 minutes. It doesn't matter. It's like a stream of consciousness thing. Whatever you're feeling, just write about it for 10 minutes. The only rule here is that you don't stop. And the more, so what happens if you don't have anything to write? Write that. I don't have anything to write and I'm feeling really uncomfortable about it. And, and then maybe some memory may come up and then you go into that. So when you do it like this, you're actually excavating yourself, and you will find that suppressed memories and suppressed hurts and pains and all of them will suddenly come out and get expressed. And we know what happens when things get expressed. They leave us. So over time, actually, this little exercise can help us to clear up all the emotional and mental debris that we accumulate, day by day by day. Carl Jung actually said that all neurosis is a function of unacknowledged pain. So when you do this little exercise and you actually acknowledge your pain, you're actually freeing yourself of future neurosis. So you just can't do without writing, folks. It's really a powerful skill. And then quite apart from its therapeutic value, writing has great practical value as well. You know, and just the capacity to write simply, clearly, and elegantly can hold you in good stead in any area of your life. Even if all you're doing is writing emails, your recipients will bless you for it. You know, and not only that, you will go up in their esteem because of the clarity and the simplicity with which you've expressed yourself. And there will be less misunderstandings all around because people understand you. So that's a small thing. But what about, suppose you're writing professionally, or even if you're writing on social media, all of us are using social media to a great extent. And I feel actually that writers have an almost unfair advantage, you know, because their writing is compelling, and you'll find that people flock to these writers and respond to them, engage with what they've written, and even allow them to influence them. So writing has all these amazing advantages, and if you're lucky enough, like me, to actually do this to earn a living, then you not only have all these other gifts, but you also have an eminently satisfying profession. Writing is not easy. Absolutely agreed. But there are very few joys that can compare with the joy of having written a really super piece of work. So I rest my case. Have I exceeded my time, or have I got time, or how does it go? Anu, you're muted.
I would request everybody right now, if you have any question for Suma, and she can answer that before we go to Uma and listen to her interview. It's an opportunity when Suma is there, and I'm not exaggerating any bit of it, because I haven't seen anyone stand in front of a tree and say, "Oh, it looks very beautifully manicured," and I was wondering what you're talking about. So there are very few people who would talk or write the way she does. And it's an opportunity, if anybody has a question or agrees with her or wants to say something, you could do that, and we could have another 5 minutes for that before we go on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, I have a question. Can I ask?
Wonderful.
Sure.
Go ahead. Ask the question, please, Himanshu. Is he? Yes.
And I realize that I'm able to look at the gaps in my own writing and what, and all. But when it comes to really talking to people at times and staying with that awareness, where talk from that perspective doesn't happen. And then at a
Himanshu,
by the time I realize that and I want to tell it.
I can't hear quite a bit of what you've said. Maybe you might like to repeat it.
Himanshu, why don't you write down on the question, and I shall read it, or Anya can read it. Your question is very valuable, and I'm sure Suma ma'am.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now for the moment.
It's better.
Yeah, shoot.
Go ahead.
I think his bandwidth is low, it shows, Anu.
Internet, could you kindly write down the question in the chat? Guys, why don't you write down the question in the chat? And it's possible for, so Claudia says that, Suma, you described the power of writing so beautifully. I'm grateful for your insights, and I get when doing me soul journey. Yes, absolutely.
Most welcome, Claudia. I'm so happy that you benefited from this.
Claudia, why don't you unmute yourself and just say it loudly? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's lovely seeing everybody. I discovered, I call it soul journeying actually, because writing for me is more writing business papers. And for me, I'm in communion with another dimension of my being. And as you were saying, aspects of the unconscious becomes conscious and I get guidance. It's a very sacred experience for me, actually.
Beautiful. Absolutely marvelous. I
And,
think
Claudia is responsible for creating things.
You ask one.
Okay. That takes the drama away and keeps the mic. I'm just saying that Claudia was the catalyst to create this book, and she and her 14 friends across the globe sat down and wrote 15 pages in the book. And it's amazing how these beautiful women have come together. And the book is called I Am Every Woman. So really glad to have very powerful people today who are ready to be vulnerable and have crossed that and gone ahead. Yes, absolutely. Anya, you'll have to unmute yourself, sweetheart.
You have the question here from Kartik.
So could you read that out, please, Anya? Thank you.
My question, when I have an emotion and I write about it, I am engaging more with that emotion. And does it help, especially when this is an emotion one wants to overcome?
Suma, over to you.
Suma, we can't hear you.
Okay. Yeah, Karthik, that's a good question, and I'm glad you asked it. The amazing thing is that, it actually really helps. I mean, this is theoretical as long as you don't do it. Try it for yourself. I think all of us have gone through these periods when we're so angry with someone and we sit and write it out and the anger goes. Now, the point is, what you need to do is to not reinfect yourself by reading it. So when you really only want to vent, then what I suggest is you write it all out, get it out of your system and, tear it up and throw it away. Don't reinfect yourself by rereading it, okay? You'll be fine. So Himanshu has also written his question. Should I take this, Anu?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll take it. So Himanshu says, I've been writing my diary journal for 10 years now, and I'm aware of the biases in my personality, the gaps have started to reduce. But is there a point where there is no, I suppose he means where there is no gap between what you speak and what you think? It's been going on for 10 years now, yet I find myself lying to people in very small ways. And by the time I want to correct it on the outer side, it becomes a little late. So how long can this process take? So this is quite a deep question, I should say. But let me see whether I can answer. So you're saying basically that is there a point when what you say and what you think is absolutely one? Is that what you mean, Himanshu? And you're saying that you also find yourself lying to people in very small ways, and by the time you want to correct it, it becomes a little late. Yeah. So yes, I think over time you will definitely find that you will start that as your awareness becomes greater. Man Karm Vachan Lala. Yes, perfectly. So as your awareness becomes greater, you will find that there is much less time between awareness and action. Otherwise there is a long time, and there's also much less time between doing something, feeling bad about it, and moving away from that feeling bad. Everything becomes much more integrated. So there will come a time when you become aware that you said something, maybe you lied to somebody, and you immediately correct it then and there. There will come a time. I can't give, I can't tell you how long it'll take you, because each of us has our own journey, and it will depend on where we are on the path. But the only thing we can be sure of is we will eventually get there. I don't know when we'll get there, maybe this lifetime, maybe another lifetime, but we will eventually get there. And the only thing we have to do is not give up. That's all, Himanshu. So hang in there and keep going, and there will come that beautiful time when you'll be 100% integrated as a human being.
Thank you so much, Suma, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Anu. Thank you so much, Anya and Claudia, and all of you here. Wonderful to be with all of you.
So over
I
to
hope you stay on, Suma, to listen to Uma's story.
Of course, I'd love to.
That would be very nice. So we are 15 authors from across the globe who have contributed to this book. Each woman had an untold story, an unsolved pain. We connected during the pandemic with our most vulnerable part of self to create this amazing book. So we've already heard 3 authors, and today is our 4th author, Uma. I can't see her here, but she's somewhere. Uma is a visionary, conscious activist and founder of a conscious fashion brand, Upasana. This is Upasana, what I'm wearing.
Lovely.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
She lives in Auroville, a spiritual community in the south of India. During COVID time, Uma has been facilitating collective spaces to access a deeper and profound inner space within. Uma is a fashion designer, an activist, and a social entrepreneur for over 25 years. Uma currently heads few social projects in area of livelihood and woman empowerment. Her projects got recognition from UNESCO and GOI India, founder of Upasana, and also founder of Tsunamika. Tsunamika, I remember, Uma, are these little dolls, huh? I have a lot of them at home. I give them away all the time. They're so cute. She's committed about ecology and conscious clothing. She teaches conscious fashion nationally and internationally, part of RTL Works community and intermodal expressive art. She supports young entrepreneurs, does strategy planning for NGOs. That is Uma. Over to you and Anu. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya. You are so amazing. Thank you. So, Uma, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself so that we can then have a chat. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm going to take myself off spotlight and put everybody in the normal story. Okay, so cancel the spotlight. Okay. I can't, yes. So Uma, we had a chat about a week, and that's how much I know Uma at that time. When I started listening to her story, I felt parts of story resonated with what I had gone through as a child. And maybe that was because she comes from India and I am also an Indian. But it was not just that. It was as if though the spirit that she has in herself of wanting to do things at her terms, to stand and shine in her life, to constantly ask herself, like she said, when I asked her, if you didn't live this life, what would you have? And she said, I wouldn't have been any different in my personality. And that's what touched my heart, that no matter where we go, probably do what we do because we're born to do that. So I'm going to start the other way around today, Uma, with you. I read the whole chapter again today, and I'm going to begin at the end. And the end said something like that you do this and you do that and you do that. So my question to you is, have you found the purpose of your life? And if you have, then what is it? Thank you.
Wow, what a question, Anu. Uh, so living in Oroville, I'll go a little backward that I was in Delhi. I was 24-year-old and I had the dream job I wanted and dream space I wanted to be and being financially empowered. And I had my beautiful check in my hand, my first check, paycheck. And I was holding that against a window and asked myself if I was happy. This was all I had hoped for, and it was in front of me. And it was really something could have made me dance on the table, but I wasn't dancing on the table. And when I asked this question to myself, if I was happy, it took me a while. And that really shit scared me. I just couldn't imagine that I was there and I am not able to celebrate, as if when you reach the summit, the greater summits are visible. Before that, the smaller summits are the only summits. So from that space, 2 years later, I ended up coming to southern part of India in Oroville, my grand love of my life community, which is such a great vision, and I really felt at home. I was instantly part of Oroville as a community in a very first day, very first few hours. Now, after this almost 25 years living in Oroville, do I feel like I have found the space and I've been where I wanted to be? To a great extent, yes. There is a deep sense of contentment. There is a deep sense of pause within. And of course, there's the external work and there's a lot of other expression, but deep down, I feel very home. That's there. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. And when you say I have this deep feeling of being at home, can you explain what that really means? Because a lot of people say, I'm at home, I'm happy, but they don't really mean it. I mean, even when you're saying you're standing with that check and looking at it and you're saying, hey, I'm not happy. How are you happy today?
So happiness is where we all seek happiness. In travel, we seek home. So when people travel and they constantly travel, basically what's happening in their life is that they are seeking home. So we can be born in one place, brought up in one place, live in another place, and our home still can be somewhere else.
Wow. I mean, so many dimensions of finding home. So many dimensions of finding home. I'm going to take you back to the beginning of the story. And the beginning of your story where you talk about, we were the house of six sisters. Could you talk about that, please?
So I'm born in Gaya, place in Bihar, Bodh Gaya, a great grand place of Lord Buddha's enlightenment 2,500 years back. And I'm born in the family of 6 daughters. And it wasn't that funny. It was being in Bihar, having the daughters, 5 younger sisters, growing up in that atmosphere, and my father's best friend or our favorite uncles reminding us that your dad will go bankrupt, gathering dowries for you guys to marry you girls off. And it really bothered me. What the hell? Why would my father will ever go bankrupt because of us? I didn't realize as a young child this pressure. It really woke me. And the gender inequality, which is so much prevalent in our society, and it's a golden frame. We bow down to it, we buy it, we sacrifice our life to make people happy, to make everybody else happy. We are last in the ladder, and all of that wisdom was getting taught to me as a girl child. And I used to wonder, what's wrong? What's wrong that I have to put fair and lovely on my face to be fair? What's wrong? What is this parameter? And I couldn't answer all of that. There was a lot of questions I had in my early childhood. And I simply said, no, I'm not going to put fair and lovely. I'm okay to be brown. So yes, when I go back to now and look at what does it mean to be part of sisters, one thing happens to me was that sensitivity towards gender became very, very obvious in a very early childhood. And respect for women became the need to look up to. A later period in my life when I have been in the position to make things happen around, I saw myself taking women empowerment as a very serious chapter without even knowing it. It took me many years to connect the dot back that it is coming from very early childhood, being in Gaya in Bihar and growing up and having so many sisters around and seeing father trying to collect dowry and not telling us, and revolting, wanting to have marriages which will have no dowry and go for education, and all of this thought process were churning out and in a very haphazard manner. Things are changing in India, not yet fully there, but we are on the way. Yeah.
So what do you think has changed in India, Uma? And just for people who don't know what Fair and Lovely is, because it's not available across the globe, this is a beautiful cream that so that they can have a pale skin. Because in my country, the paler your skin is, the more prettier you're counted on. So yeah, that's what Uma was talking about. Okay, Uma, so what has changed according to you? I mean, you said things have changed. What do you think has changed?
India, I do see that as a society, we are able to take women as they are, at least in the city. We are able to honor our women. Earlier, we all had to cut ourselves and file ourselves beautifully, curate ourselves to be a woman, and curated women who had long hair and beautiful face and preferably fair. You got to be fair to be to even qualify to be pretty and beautiful, and you always look down, and you were always very submissive, obedient, and sleeve, no sleeveless please. So I had my parameter was very nicely given to us, that wear some gold jewelry, beautiful sari, long hair, look down in respect, and they were all fair or beautiful or dignified women's portrait, and that is what we were all looking up to, and even I was trying to fit into. And then these women, they get married off, and then they worship their husbands at their God and take care of the family, sacrifice themselves, make everybody else happy. So these were all the wisdom also taught to us, taught to me. Compared to that, when I see women stand, compared to that, today I do see women standing in her own light, be who they are, shine their greatness, and able to say no, and we can take it. Wow, that's a step. It's not everywhere, but yes, we are at least started in the cities. And of course, I live in Oroville where things are rather different. But this accepting femininity in her greatness is a new thing for our country. We have worshipped women in temple as goddesses, not at home. We don't know how to take care of women as a country, but now we are learning to be there.
Thank you, Uma, for that. I also, when I was reading, you asked your mom a question. Do you remember what that question was?
Yes.
That question to anyone ever. So can you tell us what that question was, and why did she say what she said? And it felt, you said that, now I understand why she said this. Like after years, I understand what she said. Could you just tell us about that question, what she asked you, how did you answer, and what was going on there? Thank you.
So I was 11-year-old, and I saw a lot of younger children around, my younger sisters, and I have an elder brother, and I am the second eldest or first girl child of the family, and I have 5 more sisters, and it was very clear the parents were looking for another son to be born. And there was girl after girl after girl after girl, one more girl, and finally they gave in. So we were 6 daughters and 1 brother. And I went to my mother and says, I called her by name, as that time television used to have only one channel, Krishi Darshan, and anchor lady was Geeta, and my mother's name is also Geeta. So I went to her and said, Geeta Ben, can I ask you a question? And she looked at me very, very surprised. You never talk to your mom like that. I mean, you don't do that. And I was in a funny mood. And then I asked her, Geeta Ben, you have so many children. Did you choose that? And she was stunned. She just looked at me and said, never, ever ask this question to any woman ever again. I didn't get it. I was like, what did I do? I just wanted to have a simple question. There are too many people at home, and I'm just wondering if it's not everywhere. That also taught me the vulnerability of a woman, of even choosing a family size. It wasn't my mother's choice for sure. And that kind of hit me. I love my sisters. There's no way that we have a great bond and beautiful family and so, but this whole search or dynamics that how family gets planned and what role a woman plays into that really put a blanket on me, and it even still stays with me. And when I look around, I knew that time that I'm not going to have my own children. My family has done my share, and I'm not going to have child in this life. And that has been the reality. And I didn't know that at the age of 11, I could take this decision so strongly and curated my life that way. And especially to look at women's position. And that many things, that particular one dialogue with my mother lasted with me till now, and I do ponder upon it. Do you have of course, I have many friends there. My many girlfriends have the choice and they choose how many children they would like to have, but my mother didn't have that choice. And I'm sure a million women in India do not have that choice even today.
So how does a woman create a choice for herself, which is so important, when she doesn't even have a choice of whether she's going to give birth to a child, or even worse, whether she's going to conceive that child?
Say it again, Anu.
How does a woman get that respect and love for herself? How does she make a choice when she doesn't even have a choice over her body, of how she uses it, of whether she's going to give birth to a child or not, right up till whether she's going to conceive that child or not? It felt and sounded as if she had to make a child, so she did, and they needed 4 more boys, so she was a medium, nothing else. How does a person create that choice? How did you create that choice for yourself?
So very early age, I knew I had to run away from my hometown, do whatever. And as Anya said that I do strategy planning for NGO, the first strategy I planned, it was for myself. And I didn't even know I was doing a strategy planning for my life. And my first strategy was to get out of this place, whatever it means. So education was a gateway, and managed to talk to parents in that language. And I was out of the house, and I had to kind of break that pattern of living in the small community, thinking like a small community, and rotating in that cycle, and I could see that very soon I would have had otherwise 4 children and 2 cows and under one tree, one small little house somewhere in the village, and some chickens running around, and life is pretty full and complete, and that wasn't my life. I could see that wasn't my life, and I had to make the exit before it becomes a reality. And I just kind of managed. And me being eldest in the girl sequence of the family, it just came handy that one by one, I pulled all my sisters out of home. And the youngest one went to Massachusetts to do her master's. I mean, it's unimaginable to be that. It's just unimaginable. And I kind of admire my parents who have stressed themselves in their lifetime so big and accommodated all of us rebellious daughter. And we were not the fair and lovely goody daughter. It just happened to be that everybody went bizarre. I mean, they were very authentic and they lived with it. What I learned in this process, Anu, that a woman wakes up in her life, she's so powerful that people bow down to. But if she's not woken up to her own life, you get made out of pancake. So choices are very narrow. Either we are awake and we are not awake. These are the life choices we make.
Wow. You spoke last time when we were talking and connecting with each other, you spoke about the forest, a forest that you created of choice. A forest, you spoke about 4 different parts of Hindu ashrams that they are called. And then you said, you know, at the end, people go to the forest. And somehow it felt that you did go to the forest, but it was the Oroville way. So how was your journey different than otherwise? What was that forest all about?
So when in the very early childhood, I knew that I'm not going to produce child of my own. And this whole very Hindu mythology and life, and from a Balaprastha, and then going into Yuva to Grihasthas, and then Vanaprastha in the old days after marrying your children and so on. That story stayed with me. And somehow I didn't even realize that I was buying into this story so strongly. And so I spoke to my mother once again and saying, may I adopt one of your daughter as my girl child and marry her off and then go to Vanaprastha, go to forest. So I have to marry a daughter before going to the forest. And this whole life was very in the sequence plan, and I'm not going to have a children. It was a very, very kind of a surreal, some picture which has painted in my head. And my mother looked at me and she said, did you do your homework? So we had a communication gap. I was asking for adoption of a child, and she was asking me to do my homework. So she couldn't imagine that one little girl has so much going on in her head, and what she's asking is actually she's very serious. So when I grew up, I did adopt one of my younger sister as my daughter and did arrange her wedding. And I was working in Delhi. I had my life or independent life, which I was seeking. So this wedding thing, I did perform. And when my sister was going with her husband to her new home, I cried like a mother. And for me, there was a deep sense of opening within that now I am ready to go to the forest. And I didn't know that I land up literally in the forest. And 2 years later, I landed up in Oroville, and Oroville is lush green forest, even though it is man-made forest. 50 years back, Oroville used to have a sandstorm. Now we have 5 million trees in 2,500 acres of land in International Spiritual Township near Pondicherry. It's a beautiful place, but to cut the story short, this sense of living the 4th layers of life in as per Hinduism, and crossing that pattern or righteous lifestyle of somewhere I had got into that from our mythology. And I married my daughter as, of course, my younger sister, and I was 26-year-old when I came to Auroville for my Vanaprastha. And in my mind, I was ready for a spiritual life. And 2 years back, I already had this check story and asking if I are happy. So everything was falling into the place. And here I come in a completely different way of living. And story goes on.
You looked at mom and dad and you wanted relationships to be different. You did cross through different stages that Hinduism talks about, but you also made relationships which were probably for you differently. You did them differently. So can you introduce us to how your relationships were different? Thank you.
You mean that emotional relationship or partner that way?
Yes.
Yeah. So coming to Auroville, it's as a community, this is not the place where we celebrate marriage in a conventional term. Mother says, if relationship takes you to divinity, go for it. But you don't have to be married to be able to reach divinity. So in the life in Auroville, I have beautiful relation. And my first relationship was with Manoj, my Indian partner, and a very beautiful man. But one point, it has become very, very clear to me. I was sick and I was just not being well. And it was going on for some years. And I realized that something is over. I was kind of dying slowly. And one day I left home looking for life. I knew I would be taken care of. My photo will have one flower every day. I may not be alive, but I will be honored. And I made a choice that I don't want to be in the frame with the photo on my frame. I'd rather live and see life in the terms of life. So my current relationship, I'm with a man who is not from India, he's from Denmark. And our first negotiation was that we will never live in the same house. No way. And we always had 2 apartments. And it was very weird for some of my friends and also my partner's friend to know that we don't live together. But it was the need, and I later understood that many times relationship breaks not because it has to break. Relationship breaks because relationship needs space and we don't know how to give that. And especially women, we don't know how to honor that space. So I ran away from relationship, not looking for another relationship, but a space, which I did not know how to ask for it. And that has been a very recent learning and very beautiful one. And I do see people struggle in that space and we don't talk about it. The package is very given, right? We live in our given format. Everything is structured. Format is given. You get into the groups and start following. And what matters to me in my life is the dignity for women and respecting my own self. And that was something non-negotiable. And I still see that I carry one parameter for myself, that not allowing anybody to disrespect a woman. And that can be me or somebody around me. That's simply not allowed.
So, Uma, how do you stop women who disrespect themselves?
You know, when we disrespect ourselves, we don't really disrespect ourselves. We are just being a little ignorant about ourselves, or we are frightened for some reason or another. And very often we are frightened. We are not so dumb and ignorant, but we are frightened. that has been one of my recent work, and I like to thank Claudia for that we got into this deep conversation of owning our presence. And owning our presence can only happen when I know who I am and I'm able to, like Somaji just said, that if you own your vulnerability, it's a very creative space. It's not a negative space. And very often we are not able to own that space. And I see that if that conversation has made alive and we bring that on the surface to see, it changes. People have flowered, women have flowered. But this ambiguous space and the whole cultural background and norms and trying to please, and the big thing is trying to be good. You see, we have to be good somehow. Either you are pretty and then you can get away with some nonsense. So if you're average, then you better be good, and good has a parameter. And parameter is you make people happy. So everybody's scrubbing themselves off, killing themselves off to make somebody else around happy. And that's a very vicious cycle.
So beautifully said. So beautifully said. And many are very guilty that they aren't able to make other people happy.
Yeah, we feel guilty. That's very rightly said. So we are bought into this guilt syndrome so strongly, and women buys them so easily. You can just sell us in the great amount of it. So very often we are sitting and feeling guilty about things, and it's such a non-empowering space. But we have made it norm. We have to really ease that space up, and that's begin to happen. So I do hold conversation. I do hold session, and in a personal space, in the group space with friends, and really have this eye-to-eye conversation of sisterhood. What is needed? What can be done so you can shine, and what makes you shine? Not in the cost of others. We are not saying dump everybody else and just be happy. No. But one thing is very clear: if she is not happy, nobody is happy. A very simple fact.
So well said. If she's not happy, then nobody's happy. I will also call you a dream girl, because you had 2,000 rupees in your hand, which is about 30 euros, and a dream. Could you tell people what was the dream and how did you achieve that dream with just 2,000 rupees, and which is equivalent to 30 euros?
So when I came to Oroville, I had a dream of creating a studio and a place where India can be brought in with Indian textile and Indian ethos, and bringing India through textile was my dream before I started Upasana. And it all started under a tree, and I literally had this 2,000 rupees and one grand dream. And today, Upasana is one of beautiful campus inside Oroville. It is literally beautiful, not because I created it. It is, Oroville is beautiful, and Upasana as a place is really beautiful. And that has come not so much through material means, but this holding this idea of what I wanted to, and it just manifested. Then my learning had been that power of our thought is so powerful. We tend to undermine that. So Upasana did begin with the 2,000 rupees. I was the only staff. Then I got 2 more people, and now recently we have been a team of 50 people empowering thousands of lives across Tamil Nadu, Pondicherry, and different part of India through our social project. We have a women empowerment projects, and we work with the different craft sectors and education and so on. And it all, bottom line was a tiny deposit of 30 euro, and that unfolding itself into a great space. So bottom line would be that never really undermine your dream. Universe does conspires to make them real if you believe in them.
Wow, wow, wow. That's quite a story. Guys, so it's not that if you have 10 crores in your pocket and 2,000 rupees, you can't have a dream. A lot of people will laugh at you and say, hey, that's not possible. Everything is possible. Everything is possible. Uma, you spoke about the suicides that the farmers and how it touched your life and how your world was never the same. Could you tell us a little?
So I'm trained as a fashion designer by profession, and I live in Auroville. And first thing I asked myself, saying, how awkward and obsolete education mother has given me, or divine has given me, to very first place. And who in Auroville is looking for fancy clothes to wear and feel good about it? We don't, our lifestyle is very, very different. And I was a little confused initially, but then Know India through textile cities began, Upasana was born, and a lot of things began to happen. And I saw myself asking question in the realm of clothing. It's one of our primal need, and we talk about being a very creative industry, but in reality, in my country, when 54 million people work in craft, textile, and clothing sector, we are the one nation where farmers are committing suicide in the cotton belt. And I suddenly saw myself as a standing in the pool of blood, and I couldn't bear it. I just couldn't bear it that I have to continue with working with cotton, and cotton is my prime material. I touch in my finger and it has a blood of my own farmers, and I can't do anything about it. That impacted me tremendously. I couldn't sleep. I simply would have left everything and worked in Matrimandir Garden and done something for the community, but not to work with textile. And that was a turning point that we began to work, and conscious clothing became my language, and Upasana became kind of center where we are known for our intervention. We, Upasana, had been working in conscious clothing for last 20 years, where organic has become just a norm now, or conscious or sustainable clothing we talk about now as a fashionable term. But we have been in this field for many, many years. And it's behind it is this wanting to lift the yoga of Sri Aurobindo, which is, he talks about integral yoga. And I have been searching that what would an integral business mean in the light of Master's philosophy. An integral business for me was when business were taking care of the people and ecology. And in my sector, we were not taking care of people and ecology. In my sector, people are poor, handlooms are closing, farmers are committing suicide, and I couldn't just be comfortable with it. So it tremendously impacted me. And since then, the profile of work, what I have been doing, and my organization Upasana does, you can see us in upasana.in. So our area of work had been to bring sense of equality and justice to the life form, and also for our ecology. We cannot go on doing what we do. And that's primarily because of Auroville. It also, being in Auroville, many things changes. The whole thought process are very, very different. And our sense of priority in life, as personal life, professional life, as a CEO or a director of an organization, is very different. And that has brought another level of impact. That makes me happy. That makes me more whole and content within.
You also speak about Claudia, who is right here on the platform, and give her a lot of gratitude since she's here. Can you tell everybody what role she's played in your life? Thank you.
Claudia had been my catalyst sister, and I met Claudia just by chance in Oroville. And of course, I would have known her otherwise, but she ended up staying in our community very closely, and we spent very beautiful, quiet time together. And then during lockdown, our conversation deepened. And she invited me as a guest speaker to talk to her beautiful group initiative Claudia had started during the pandemic, is Friday coffee morning. So her friends would come together in the morning and have coffee together and talk about things which matter to them. And one day Claudia invited me into that group. And I ended up talking about Oroville and something more, and that it grew up into a deeper discussion. And right now we have 2 sessions on, and one is literally we call it satsang, holding a place where we grow together. So conversation deepens from the self of being a woman or sisterhood to our journey of what matters to us, and do I shine my own light in a very practical terms though. And same time have a spirituality which is more applied. So we also had a session on shining our own light, and I called it that when world is going through transformation like today, the only gift I have to give is to be myself and shine in my own light. And that became a very center of our conversation. And it only could happen because there was Claudia next to me. I can't thank her more for this journey, and it really has opened a new dimension for me as a person. And then she invited me to write a chapter around my life, and I'm not a writer. I mean, listening to Suma ji, I would say, oh my God, I'm not a writer. I'm a good speaker, but I'm not a writer. So Claudia is like, write something. It's so interesting what your life has to tell. And when I began to write, it was a very angry chapter. My chapter was an angry chapter with, I said, blowing the last wind of patriarch. And that's what my chapter begins. So I was like very, very fiercely angry girl writing what had she thought was not okay. But by the time I was finishing the chapter, it became more of acknowledging the divine feminine. So this anger had transformed. And working with Claudia on this book tremendously has opened a new dimension of voicing oneself out, and how Sumaji says it so beautifully that when you speak it, when you empty it from here, it empowers you and it invites you to write more. And I do feel it is time for women to write their story. It has been a long due that women have written their story. It is long due that we have been even given that permission that it is worthwhile to do that. So invitation is to everybody, go and write story of your life. And it's, yeah, and if you need help, just call Sumaji.
Absolutely, Uma. It's a dream that I have, Anya has, that one day in India too, not one day, I should say very soon, there will be women from across different spaces writing their story and putting it and publishing it under one roof and under one.
That's so beautiful.
I mean, she comes to she helped me express, and I'm very sure that there are many who want to express but just don't know how to. And yeah, we have everything. And thank you. Could you tell me the last question of the day? How did the book transform your life? I mean, you did talk about how you were angry and how the title changed, but you're talking about very beautifully, you said, respect your space. You talked about divine femininity, and then you've spoken about accepting yourself. How did the book help you in all that?
So That's a very good question. It's a bit like what Sumaji said, the power of writing. And these were all thoughts were everywhere. We all have it, and some thoughts visit us more prominently, and some thoughts are lying at the back end of the brain. But during writing and synthesis, there's a picture emerges. And for me, that emerged too. And I begin to see more dots than I imagined to see. And the sense of lightness, when we don't speak, it all sits inside and we don't know how to speak. So when first time I wrote my chapter and sent it to Claudia, and I thought I was done, chapter written, sent to Claudia, all over. And Claudia sends me a reply which says, hey, you have to detail it out, and it is written from a very Indian perspective, and many things people will not understand, so you have to really detail it out. Oops, that like unraveling happened, and more paragraph was added, and more I was writing, the more I was able to see. And one point I had to stop. But I know this, when one expresses, there is an objectivity in the scene, and that objectivity holds a much greater picture which mind is able to comprehend. And that is what I saw, that writing the chapter, it brought up many facets in front of me. And it makes life more rich and relaxed and beautiful at the same time. Inwardly is that, and externally, there is somebody else who might get inspired and write their story.
Thank you, Uma. Thank you so much. I'm just going to keep calm right now, and because so much that's going on in my head and my heart now, and I can feel that others over here too are in deep thinking as to how they could be touched, or their life could be touched by what you all have done. Anya, could you just welcome Vasvi, and then we open up the question answer session after that, because I would really like this young lady to read her poem, and she writes beautifully, guys. She writes beautifully. Thank you.
Vasvi, can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Yes, I'm so happy to see you again.
I'm really
A great poet. She is a great poet. So thank you very, very much for being here on our platform. And it's the new generation. I like that. I'm the old generation. We have a new one here, and you're writing, and so beautifully. So Vasvi aspires to be something the likes of a poet laureate, as she does not believe the two are mutually exclusive. Vasvi's work has appeared in Rattle magazine, one of the most widely read poetry magazines in the world, the Alipur Post, and has also been commented by the Radiant Peace Foundation International. Over to you.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. I want to say thank you to Anu Mehta for this opportunity, and I'm just grateful to share this platform with three such accomplished women. The energy on this Zoom call is just lovely, and before I start reading my poems, I would like to say that I think writing is a wonderful tool, and following on from the quest of finding home, which Uma spoke about, I have to say that I've always found refuge in words, and things that are hard to express. Whenever I start writing, I found that magical things happen, and it just helps you to distance yourself from your own emotions.
She speaks so beautifully, and she's got frozen. Vasvi. Okay. Okay, guys. Okay. Unmute yourself, Vasvi. Unmute yourself.
Okay, I don't know what just happened. I
Yeah.
think I lost everyone. Everyone lost me. Yeah. So I'll just share my screen so that then it'll be easier to follow what I'm saying. Thank you for that. I'm not able to share my screen. It says
Just
host disabled attendee screen share.
sharing rights. Go ahead. And I'm also making you the co-host. So,
Okay,
go ahead.
got it. Yes, okay. So I will read two poems. I will start with this poem called Words. It's just because we're talking so much about writing and the power of words, I thought it's suitable. Words. In the end, it all crumbled into words. Mountains of habit we overcame, cold pillows under the banyan shade, the sun-burnt leather upon which we fled the city, and heaps of back row cinema coupons, all slumped into one another like slurred speech. We grew afraid of time. This fear crumbled too, and we dragged our knees, disbelieving, through the debris of language and salvaged nothing. Some kept you on the couch, some kept me awake. Some we didn't mean kept us from saying some we meant. Words like feet still skip over the rope that is my lips, but try to trip me sometimes. Nothing I say is what you want to hear, and you say nothing, though I'm here. Even the kettle hisses like a baby dragon today, and the bookends scream as they labor their fingers under the Goliath weight of the wisdom of words. Words unsaid are what I want to say, each a little realm purling in the air, words like currency in a foreign land. I'm learning shape and size, how much each might hold. So that poem was, it was just, I think I wrote it when I was in a headspace about, sometimes I felt words can be very futile, but I also felt words can be very powerful. And the fact that they can be two such extreme opposites at one time, that's what motivated this poem. I will now read another poem on which I will end. This is something I wrote a few years ago, and it's just a poem about me pondering about what life means, and especially with our current circumstances with COVID, I thought it's really relevant. And this is a poem. So actually, my father passed away recently, and this is a poem for which I remember him telling me that he really liked it. So this poem is also for him. It's called "Please Write This on My Epitaph." In the end, we'll all become a life once lived, a lifetime, a timed life. Start marking mine with the nights clung to the bedroom door of my first home. The chink of mute TV rays seeping right to my feet, star bright. Years pressed to fit the crescent of the keyhole, to stash, bury my parents' worries. Someplace forgotten, not effaced. Like in the attic on our fourth floor, were we to ever have one. Mother's sorrow muffled as she breathes onto glass. The tough sighing weight of father's dismantled hopes burgeoning from his tailbone to the dead beads on his neck. His apnea, a plea waning. Also include those seldom afternoons when I thought myself enough to cook a breakfast for one. days devoted in studying the steadfastness of our mango tree to feel still rich in time, the weeks taken to unlearn the vast vacuum that emerges after some lover left, only to remember again, and the months it took for my hips to expand, hold soft the permission to be held. Appraise it with the remaining wisdom of my hair after it's been conned by a multitude of consumerisms, a decaying plethora of flyers received out of obligation. Thousand matches gone unlit, unnoticed, beneath collector matchboxes, and the fertile chaos of unformed opinion scattered across my journal, which be assured will lie unguarded once I'm gone. What about poems that bled me out, yet not dry, when I felt I had nothing left to give? And strangers who took liberties to weld meaning with words. I refuse to be timed by steely or stone, or to be contained in an urn of ash. What is a life if not passing through? Thank you. So
Thank you.
those
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Vasvi. Thank you.
really appreciate being on this platform. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions anybody has? You can go ahead and ask Uma. There is Vasvi here. I think Suma has just left. She sleeps early. Anything anybody wants to ask, wants to share or say how you found the whole thing, that would be brilliant.
I'm not gone to sleep yet. You can ask question.
Uma is awake and very awake. You can appreciate. There are a lot of messages falling on the Facebook. People are saying, loved it. Very nice, gorgeous poem, beautiful, very profound, amazing words. So a lot of feedback coming on the Facebook. Yet I would really like if people unmute and tell the beautiful writers how they are, if there's anything that inspired them. Kay is saying, Vasvi, that was so beautiful hearing you read out. It was magical. Uma, so inspiring as ever. So anybody wants to unmute, we are ready to hear you if you have something to say. Okay, thank you so much. So Vasvi is writing, thank you so much. Thank you, Suma. Magical and inspiring to hear you speak. Okay. Okay, Anya, last words with you before we say goodbye. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone. I really think it was a powerful session today and lots of attendance. I like that we had the young generation to also support us. And Uma, thank you for being who you are. And Anu, thank you for helping us host I Am Every Woman in India. And I think I will take as a helper Vasvi to help getting people together, ladies, to write a book themselves. Like we are 15 ladies who wrote a book together. And it would be nice if we could find 15 in India. And Vasvi, I will ask you to start looking for people who want to write their story. And it's nice because you're like, you know, we all wrote about 12 pages, so it's not a whole book. But the 12 pages is long too. You can't tell your whole life, but you know, like we heard today, a lot was, it's so rewarding to write. And you who write, you know about it. And yeah, let's see if we can get there. And
Okay, yes, that would be wonderful.
yeah, thank you. Anu, thank you very, very much. And we have another speaker next Wednesday again.
And at 10 o'clock, not at 8 o'clock. I would
Yes.
really love to see all of you. If you can connect back again next week, Wednesday at 10 p.m. India time. And that would be lovely, because if you are there, that helps us to grow and helps the right to grow too. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Anya. Thank you, Uma. Thank you, Vasvi. Thank you, Sumaji. And thank you, each and every one of you for being here, for supporting, for just allowing everybody to shine their light. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Big kisses. Big hug.